I was halfway through a cold beer on my porch when the emergency galactic beacon chimed, a high-pitched trill that cut through the calm of the evening like a scalpel. I hadn't heard that signal in years. Most species only used it in last-ditch scenarios, when diplomacy failed, when armies crumbled, when the monsters in the dark got too close. The screen flickered to life, revealing a familiar face, Arta Vesh, a Zolari diplomat I hadn't seen since the siege of Corneth Prime. Her mandibles clicked with nervous energy. "Human," she said, "the sanctuary is compromised. The cubs are in danger. The apex won't go near it. We need you." That last part froze me. The apex predators, species bred and born to be the ultimate hunters, were avoiding the place. That was new. And terrifying. I didn't ask for details. Didn't need them. If the cubs were involved, younglings from dozens of sentient species sheltered in the galactic sanctuary, I couldn't waste time. I downed the rest of the beer, tossed the can into the recycler, and headed to my gear locker. My armor still smelled faintly of burned ozone and blood. I suited up in silence, muscle memory guiding my fingers through each strap, each plate. As I keyed in the coordinates for Sanctuary Theta 9, I felt the familiar shift in my gut, the pull of FTL jump initiation. Seconds later, the stars stretched and blurred. My ride punched through the void, and I knew one thing for sure, whatever had scared the predators was about to meet a human. Sanctuary Theta 9 wasn't supposed to look like this. It drifted silently above a dead moon, a massive biodome station meant to be paradise, a place of safety, nurturing, and peace for the galaxy's most vulnerable young. But as my ship docked, all I saw was decay. Vines crawled over the hull like veins on a corpse. Lights flickered like dying stars. The docking bay was wide open, unguarded, no signs of staff or defense protocols. That wasn't just unusual, it was impossible. Sanctuaries were sacred, inviolable. Until now. I stepped off the ramp and silence swallowed me whole. No greeting parties. No automated welcome drones. Not even the ambient hum of life support chatter. Just the echo of my boots on metal and the faint, distant chime of wind, artificial or not, I couldn't tell. The place was dead in every way that mattered. But I knew better than to believe in peace this quiet. Peace doesn't leave claw marks on the walls. In the first corridor, I found signs of a struggle, deep scorches, shattered glass, a trail of dried bioluminescent fluid that pulsed faintly under my visor's filter. No bodies, though. No blood. Just absence. Like something had removed every living thing without a trace. I checked the logs at the command terminal. Last update was 3 days ago. Final entry, unknown entity breached outer dome. Apex units have retreated. Evacuation failed. Initiating auto-lockdown. It cut off there. I drew my weapon, heart pounding. This wasn't a sanctuary anymore. This was a hunt. The first trail I picked up was near the arboreal habitat, once a lush jungle designed for species that thrived in high humidity and dense foliage. Now, it looked like a war zone. Trees had been torn apart, their trunks snapped like twigs. The air felt unnaturally cold, even though the dome's climate control still registered tropical. There were no sounds. Not a single insect drone, not a chirp from the usual bioengineered bird life. Just silence. And that trail, wide claw marks raked across the ground, too large for any registered species in the sanctuary. Then I saw the first cub. A small creature, no more than knee-high, trembling behind a shattered nutrient pod. I recognized the species, a Volani glider, normally skittish but vocal. This one didn't make a sound, not even when I crouched beside it. Its fur was matted, eyes wide, fixed on something that wasn't there anymore. I whispered gently, offered a protein bar. It didn't move. Only when I slowly placed the bar in its tiny paws did it finally blink and collapse into my chest, shivering. I wrapped it in my emergency cloak and moved on. Room by room, biome by biome, I found more. A lone reptilian from the Molten River Zone, injured but alert. A pair of hexapedal runners from the Frost Sector, hiding under collapsed walls. All of them told the same story in their own ways. No screams, no alarm, just a sudden drop in light and temperature. And a name they whispered with fear, asterisk the cold thing dot asterisk. I finally saw it on the edge of the aquatics dome, just a flicker, a distortion in the air like heat waves in reverse. It didn't make a sound, didn't leave tracks. But it moved fast, too fast, slipping between the walls like it didn't care about matter. My visor sensors failed to lock onto it. Infrared went dead. Motion tracking glitched out. Whatever it was, it didn't belong in this dimension, not entirely. It had weight, presence, but no mass I could measure. The cubs were right to call it the cold thing. I could feel it long before I could see it. The air dropped 10 degrees when it was near. My breath fogged up inside my helmet. And for the first time in a decade, I felt fear claw at my spine. I tried firing on it, plasma rounds, cryo bursts, even a pulse grenade. Nothing touched it. The moment I pulled the trigger, it was already gone. Not dodging, phasing. And worse, it learned. It began to mimic sounds. The laughter of cubs. The call of the sanctuary staff. Once, it whispered my name in a voice I hadn't heard since Earth. I stopped trying to fight it the human way. Bullets and blasts weren't going to work. This thing didn't want to kill, it wanted to devour fear. To feast on helplessness. That's why the apex had fled. They were strong, but they were hunted. I had to be something else. Unpredictable. It didn't know what humans did when we weren't afraid. But it was about to find out. The cubs needed more than hiding spots and protein bars, they needed hope. They were still alive, but they were fractured, scattered, and scared beyond reason. I couldn't outgun the cold thing, but I could deny it the one thing it fed on, fear. So I started small. I gathered them in the central dome, a broken terrarium overrun with vines and debris. I set up heat lamps, repaired what I could of the autofeeders, and started speaking, loudly, calmly, like I wasn't afraid. They stared at me like I was insane. Then I began to teach. A Tarkanian raptor, all claws and feathers, learned to throw rocks at a moving target. Not instinct, but strategy. An Veth crawler with 6 skittering legs started drawing maps in the dust, routes between vents, choke points, places we could lure the cold thing if we had to. The smallest ones learned fire, how to spark it, how to keep it alive. Some nights, we sat in a circle around the flames and told stories. I told them about wolves, about Earth, about how humans learned to fight monsters with sticks and fear with laughter. The cold thing came close once, hovering outside the light, its presence heavy and cold. But none of us flinched. One of the cubs even threw a burning stick at the shadows. That moment mattered more than any weapon I'd carried. They weren't prey anymore. They were learning to be something else. Something human. And for the first time, I saw the cold thing hesitate. We made our stand in the heart of the sanctuary, the central control dome, long abandoned and flickering with dim emergency lights. I'd spent days rigging it, turning it into a fortress with whatever we could find. Furniture became barricades. Power cores were rerouted to floodlights. I even jury-rigged a signal booster to transmit a fake beacon, bait. We weren't hiding anymore. We were calling the cold thing in. The cubs were ready. Not as soldiers, but as a unit. The raptor had become our scout, silent and fast. The Veth was our strategist, scrawling traps in old staff terminals. Others held tools, blunt or sharp, improvised into weapons. They didn't have strength or tech, but they had will. I made sure of it. Then it came. No warning. Just cold, suffocating cold, as the shadows melted inward. The cold thing slithered through the air like liquid void, twisting space around it. Lights flickered, walls groaned, and still we held our line. No one ran. No one screamed. I activated the trap. A gravitational imploder, cobbled together from stolen sanctuary tech and infused with an emotional pheromone amplifier scavenged from the neurotherapy labs. It didn't need to hurt the cold thing, just confuse it. Surround it with something it had never encountered before, courage. The air cracked. The void screamed. The cold thing tried to phase, but the imploder locked it, dragging it into a gravity well wrapped in raw, unfiltered defiance. And then it was gone. Silence returned. But this time, it was ours. Hard-earned. Human. When the elders finally arrived, weeks late, flanked by elite Apex security units and armored transports, they expected ruins. They expected to recover broken bodies, maybe salvage records, mourn the lost. What they found instead was a perimeter held by cubs, standing tall with sharpened tools, fire-hardened eyes, and watchful silence. The sanctuary wasn't just intact, it had become something new. Stronger. Wilder. Human. The elders looked at me like I was a myth. A single human, surrounded by species that should have crumbled without adult protection, now operating with discipline and unity. They questioned my methods, at first. Said I had no authority, no right to train the young in violence, in rebellion. But the cubs stood with me. Not out of fear. Not because I ordered them. Because they chose to. The raptor growled at an apex officer who raised his voice. The crawler corrected the council's threat assessments with updated maps. Even the tiniest glider bared her teeth when someone suggested relocation. These weren't helpless cubs anymore. They had bonded through fire and fear and laughter. They had seen a monster and lived. Not by hiding, but by facing it together. Eventually, the elders stopped talking. They just watched as the cubs repaired the sanctuary, side by side, many still carrying the human-made slings, torches, and hand-painted symbols of our resistance. When they left, they didn't take the cubs with them. They simply nodded at me and whispered words I'll never forget. When even apex predators flee, call a human.